I may have forgot music, but if anyone wants me to sit and sing, I can give that a go. I'm pretty sure you'll not be keen on that idea, though. Yes, I'm not going to sing. I'll let somebody else do that in chat. I'll give it to, seeing as he's there, Stuart can sing for everybody. Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word Live and to some immediate, instant, straight away race reaction to the 2019 Monaco Grand Prix. What a boring race because there weren't a million overtakes. That appears to be the consensus from some over on Twitter. Quite frankly, I think that was a bloody good race. Wasn't amazing, wasn't an absolute thriller, wasn't the greatest thing we're ever going to see. But given that everyone arrived at Monaco off the back of a crap race in Spain, a very disappointing race in Baku, a poor weekend in China, one good race in Bahrain, I thought that was actually really, really good. Again, not amazing, but we'll get onto that in just a moment. We'll kick it off by having a look at the race result. Of course, at this point, I need to say, for some reason, spoiler alert, it was Lewis Hamilton who took victory once again for Mercedes. 2.6 seconds clear of Vettel. Now, Verstappen did cross the line in second place, but a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release dropped him to fourth. More on that later. Valtteri Bottas in third place, so it is an end to those long runs of Mercedes 1-2. Very disappointing day for them. Only first and third. Oh dear. Max Verstappen fourth, as I've already said. Pierre Gasly in fifth. I think he got fastest lap as well. Carlos Sainz in sixth place. Seemed to slide under the radar. Very good drive from Carlos once again. The two Toro Rosso boys, seventh and eighth. Daniel Ricciardo, contrary to what I said at the end of the watch along, did just, and I mean just pip Romain Grosjean to ninth place after the Frenchman got that penalty, dropping him to 10th. Lando Norris, 11th, just missing out on the points for McLaren. 12th for Kevin Magnussen. What could have been for him? 13th for Perez. 14th for Nico Hulkenberg. Russell in a Williams in a race that featured one retirement. 15th, come on. 16th for Lance Stroll, 17th for Kimi Raikkonen, Robert Kubica 18th, Antonio Giovinazzi 19th, and Charles Leclerc retired from his home Grand Prix. Ouch, that's all I'm going to say on that one, but it is time to introduce a couple of guests. We're going to try and get through this as quick as we can tonight, because obviously the Indy 500 is on at quarter to whatever, less than an hour from now, and people want to watch that, and I know that people are going to bog off, so we will get through this as quickly as we can. We'll go alphabetically, and we'll say a very good afternoon to Stuart. How was that for you, mate? Good afternoon.
Hello, how's it going? That was tense, wasn't it?
It was a good word.
We were sort of, it was a thriller. There wasn't, action, maybe a bit low, but we were sort of waiting for the cork to pop, which was very fun.
whatever floats your boat, I guess is my answer to that one. Anyway, it's pre-Watershed, Sean. Let's move on. And I do have a second guest with me today. You might know him. Yes, he's back. No, I'm not going to sing it. A very good afternoon. It has been far too long, mate. Hello, Jonty.
It's good afternoon, Sean and Stuart and everyone. It has been a while, but that was a good race.
Yeah, it's like I say, it wasn't the greatest thing we're ever going to see, was it? But I thoroughly enjoyed that. Tense, a bit of drama with old Charlie boy, making a bit of a meal of everything. Yeah, I thought, yeah, I enjoyed that. I'm glad I'm not alone. I've seen a few people on social media saying it was rubbish, but I can't say I think that at all, Jonty.
No, I mean, it wasn't quite Senna and Mansell, but it wasn't that far away. He only had the one dive, but he was so close the whole time. You just didn't know when that move was going to come and if it was going to stick. I quite happily watch races like that.
Yeah, it's Formula One, isn't it, Stuart? We don't get hundreds of overtakes a race. It's kind of what we get from it. It's what we were saying after Spain. Actually, if I go back, we don't expect chaos. We don't necessarily want that. We don't want loads and loads of overtakes. We just want to see good close racing, and that's what we got. And when you consider it's Monaco as well, and sometimes it can be a bit miserable, and the field spread can be ridiculous. I think it was. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as the way I'm going, Stuart, and I'm going to keep saying that.
And I agree. And you're right. It's not going to be. It's not the same kind of racing as you might see in the Indy 500 later. Anyone who's watching that, where it's like overtake, and you sort of regular overtaking feeds into your strategy. Formula One is about having the possibility of an overtake, and it's difficult, and it's hard to do without having an accident. So you're kind of on the edge of your seat waiting for something to happen. So there's a bit more of a tense thriller waiting game going on with Formula One. And the last few races, we've kind of been we've known there isn't an overtake coming. Whereas this race, we're like, this could be on here. We're not sure.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll kick it off right from there. Lewis Hamilton. Are you surprised he got to the end on those tyres, Stuart? Because I remember saying in the watch along, when he came over and said the left front is opening up, I was like, yeah, he's got a pit, or there's no way he's getting them to the end. You know, we see from Hamilton all the time. He's a quick guy, probably the fastest guy out there. I think Verstappen ain't far behind him, but he's very quick. Probably the best driver on the grid. We've seen he can overtake. We've seen all of that. But we sometimes forget he's got this side to his game as well, where he can manage those tyres. But I was really, really surprised he managed to get those mediums to the end. It was a bit of a mistake from Mercedes in the first place, really, wasn't it, to put him on those at the pit stop?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be more surprised than Lewis Hamilton that he got to the end on those tyres. Yeah, I mean, in very quick retrospect, it did seem like the wrong strategy. Everyone behind him went onto the hard tyres looking to go to the end of the race. I think without a safety car period, they were expecting to do the soft to medium strategy, but with a pit stop much later in the race, and they sort of kept that strategy, but moved it up quite a few laps, and then realised they would have to take this tyre to the very end, despite it being about 20 laps longer than Pirelli advised. So really good job from Lewis, despite him nearly having a heart attack for about 40 laps. And really interesting that he struggled so much. I mean, he wasn't the only one who took those tyres for about 67 laps. There were a few other drivers there, but obviously I won't go into this too much because it's been a good race, but TV directors didn't really focus on the midfield so much, so we didn't get to see if like Magnussen was having the same problems on those tyres. But yeah, Lewis in clear air should have had the easiest time on the tyres, but no, they really went away from him quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of lap times, at one point, I think he was up in the 1:18.9s, whilst I think Alex Albon was plugging in the 1:15s at one point. So he was clearly well off the pace we would expect from them. But he wasn't happy, was he, Jonty? On team radio, we often get this from Lewis. I think some people say it's part of a negative side to him, but dare I say, as a Brit who will get the inevitable fanboy comments, I think that's just part of his character and what shows that he cares. He wants to win these races. He wants to be the best. He wants to win championships. And if things aren't going the way he'd want them to and the team make a mistake, he's going to let them know. So yeah, he was a bit moany over team radio, but in this instance where he's done nothing wrong and did everything right on Saturday and was doing everything right to that point, I think he's got a right to be a bit miffed at his team for that strategy call.
Yeah. I mean, anyone you'd expect to be complaining in that situation. You got the details from Pirelli, who said the absolute limit for those tyres was 50 laps. which obviously they were completely wrong because Grosjean did 51 on the
I was going
start.
to say, yeah.
But you also got to consider, one, he's British, and we complain a lot. We're very, very good at complaining. No one will deny that. And he's probably in the position to be most worried about it. He even mentioned it himself after the race going back to China 2007. It's happened before, and it would be a second time where it would have been the team letting him down. I was really quite worried he was going to get to a point where just he'd come to a braking zone, press the pedal, and nothing would happen. Just like China, but he managed to get away with it.
Yeah, I agree. I missed the thing on China though, over radio. There was a lot of team radio from Hamilton, but he's got everything to lose in that situation. And like I say, he's done nothing wrong. He's put it on pole. He's put it on pole. So yeah, I just don't. I don't mind him moaning in that situation. I don't like hearing. I think we get too much team radio anyway. That's a conversation for another day. I don't think we need to hear all of it, but I think he's got every right in that situation to be having a bit of a moan at his team because it was their mistake. But I'm going to be honest. I'll be completely honest, Jonty. After that pit stop, and you can go back and watch the watch along. It's a lot of stream to watch just for one line, so just take my word for it. I thought that was Vettel's. I thought he got the win. I thought the move from Ferrari, finally they've got some strategy right. It's about time they did something. And I thought, do you know what? Hamilton's going to have to pit. All those tyres are going to fail. Verstappen's got his penalty. Vettel's got himself a surprise win.
Yeah, but it didn't come about. It wouldn't have worked at any other track. Literally not a single one, not even Hungary. But it's only because it's Monaco that he was able to get away with that. Well, I was getting quite annoyed with Crofty and Brundle when they were constantly referring back to last year and thinking, you can't keep comparing this to Ricciardo's because it's a completely different situation. Yes, Ricciardo was 5 seconds down on pace because of losing MGU-K, I think.
Yeah, it was the MGUK.
He still had the tyres to do what they were supposed to when he presses the pedals. Lewis didn't. I'm not sure quite how he got to the end with those tyres. I don't think he is either.
Did you think Ferrari had a shot at that one, Stuart? Was there a moment where you thought, hey, they've got something right here?
It definitely looked very good for them. I never got to the position where I thought, Vettel was going to have this. There was actually a lot of time when I thought, because if Verstappen did manage to sneak past Hamilton, a little bit earlier on in the race, he would have had to peg out a bit of a gap to actually get the lead because of the penalty hanging over him. But only 5 seconds, which, I guess we'll never know how much pace he had in hand because he was stuck behind Hamilton the whole race. But seeing how hard it was to get past Lewis, I thought if Verstappen managed to get past and Lewis's tyres didn't burn down to the canvas, then Vettel would have had just as difficult a time. So it could have gone either way, really. But yeah, if Hamilton's tyres fell off the cliff and he needed to pit again, or he crashed or something, then yeah, Vettel was in a pretty solid place. I hope he enjoyed the race as much as we do because he was watching it from prime seats.
Yeah, he had a great spot. I wonder how much he paid for that. It's not a bad seat to be in at all. I'm pretty sure he's paid quite a bit to be sat there. Probably should have gone for Verstappen, but Vettel is second on the timesheet, so I will go with him. But a bit of a scruffy weekend, if I'm being generous, for Ferrari. Really, Stuart, not good. So I think second place for Vettel. If somebody had offered him that yesterday, I think he'd have snapped their hand off for that.
Yeah, not that I'm one to take the piss of Ferrari or anything, but they they had up to today and slightly including today, actually, they did have a bit of a rough time of it, and we found ourselves shaking our heads and wondering what are you doing again? They were lucky to get both cars into Q1, to be honest. Sorry, they were lucky to get even one car out of Q1, to be honest. What a mess they've been in lately. So yeah, but today, clearly thinking fast enough to react to things like safety cars and switching up which tyres they're going to be on. And they had the luxury, of course, of only having one car at the front, whereas Mercedes had to sort of cover both cars at the same time, and maybe they kind of lost their way with thinking, well, actually, we've got 67 laps to go. We probably should switch tyres. It's a tricky thing to do on the spur at the moment, but Ferrari were there. They're ready to capitalise if anything happened. Unfortunately, being Monaco, they couldn't make anything happen on the track. But Vettel never lost sight of the leaders, which is, I know Lewis was struggling, but there's been a lot of times when then just places 2 and 3 just sort of fall behind the leaders, and Vettel was right there, ready just in case.
If you're watching and you've not seen Stuart's video from yesterday, please go see it. It's definitely worth it. I was crying because I'm just like that. I couldn't stop laughing. Absolutely brilliant. So kudos to you for that, Stuart. That was brilliant.
I think something just snapped in me yesterday. I was like, I can't take this anymore, Ferrari. What are you doing with yourselves?
But yeah, we'll stick with Ferrari while we're there, Jonty. Charles Leclerc. It wasn't great up until Charles Leclerc decided to make things interesting. In the race, it was all right. It was close, and we saw a bit of racing in the pack. But then Charles Leclerc made a stunning move. I don't care what anyone says on Romain Grosjean. Brilliant. Threw it up the inside, and it's Romain Grosjean. Let's face it, that could end in a crash. Straight up the inside. Great move. Just had the air of Jules Bianchi about it a few years back. Goes for the same move on Hülkenberg. Hits the inside wall, and it all goes wrong. And I like Charles Leclerc. I think a lot of people do, but I've got to be honest. I felt like he threw his toys out the pram a little bit with that and was driving far too quick. That was anger, wasn't it, back to the pits? He did so much damage to his car with that puncture.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, he was thoroughly annoyed. And can you blame him after being sort of hung out to dry by his own team with idiotic choices in qualifying? Yes, they've said that they had some issues with what the computer was saying for a safe time. It's like, you don't need the computer to tell you a safe time. Every single person watching could tell you he needed to go again. It's utterly insane. And unfortunately, maybe the youth, the pressure of home race kind of just got to him a little bit, and he drove way too aggressively. Not just on his way back to the pits with the puncture, but also overall. Yes, the move on Grosjean was stunning, and in case anyone missed it, he'd already done an on-track overtake before that at the Lowe's hairpin on Norris.
Of course, yeah.
But the one on Hülkenberg, it was so much of a smaller gap. He probably should have waited a lap or two.
Yeah, I felt that in the watch along. I thought it'd have been better taking a lap or two just to get his head together and go for it. It was if it had worked, we'd be calling it the second best overtake of the day. It was good, but I think, yeah, he's gone into the race frustrated. I don't blame him for being frustrated. I'd be pretty miffed given what happened in qualifying, because his weekend was destroyed by, one, locking up himself, absolutely, but two, people are talking about that lockup as, he's got to take his share of the blame. Absolutely. If he got his lap delivered, he doesn't need to go again, but if they can get the other Ferrari turned around in a minute and a half. He went into the pits, Sebastian Vettel, in qualifying, pitted with 3 minutes to go, and left with 1:25 left. So a minute and a half to get fuel in the car and put tyres on. They could have easily done that for Leclerc. So I get his frustration, but it was just a bit hot-headed, had to take risks, and it just didn't work out. Yet another day, taking those risks might have worked out. Just way too much damage that car to continue. That brought out the safety car, obviously, which is what spiced the race up, and then it all kind of went a bit bananas in the pit stop, didn't it, Stuart? We got Bottas, Vettel and Verstappen all in together. I think Hamilton pitted first. They were double stacking the Mercs. Bottas comes out the pits. Verstappen's released into him, contacting the pit lane, which is not great. Verstappen gets to jump a little bit, but 5-second time penalty. That surprised me. It really surprised me, Stuart, when you consider that's not only an unsafe release, it's also contact with another car, and it's putting mechanics and marshals in danger. I thoroughly expected more than that.
Yeah, it's normally a bit of a harsher punishment there, isn't it? And very interesting that there were 3 cars all gaggled together in the pits, and at that moment the TV switched to some people sweeping up the track, which I appreciated. We actually only the live part of the incident we heard over commentary, but he also got 2 penalty points on his license. I'd be interested to sort of have some understanding there. The pit lane was very crowded, so if I was the kind of person to give people the benefit of the doubt, I would say it was much harder to see other cars coming, but that's why you've got spotters and pit boards and things like that to kind of, so someone's watching for cars coming. It was marginal, and it was a tight pit lane, and I don't think there was any malice in it. It was just a frantic safety car moment. But yeah, normally we do get a harsher penalty. And actually, with a crowded pit lane, you do need to be extra safe and not having accidents there. Also of note, Roman Grosjean got a 5-second penalty for crossing the pit lane exit line, which is normally a drive-through penalty. So maybe the whatever they're following to dish out punishments has been revised a little bit to be a little more lenient.
Yeah, maybe, or because they know Monaco overtaking is tough, 5 seconds is enough because you lose quite a bit, don't you? Because if you're stuck behind a car, as we saw, overtaking is tough, but that doesn't really breed consistency. That's the problem, isn't it? If that incident happens again in Canada and he gets a drive-through, everyone's going to be going, whoa, hang on a second. I think there needs to be a consistent thing across the board. But did you agree, John? Did you think that was too lenient on Verstappen?
It's a very tricky one because the whole thing with unsafe releases, it's an argument we've been having for years and years now. It's the fact that how do they penalise it properly? Because it is not the driver's fault. You know, the mechanics could barely see down the pit lane. How the hell is Max supposed to when sat in the car? Yes, absolutely, the team needs to be punished. But the problem is, it's really, really harsh to punish the driver. The 2 penalty points is absolutely ridiculous and insane and stupid. How you punish someone for doing something that they know nothing about? It's down to the team releasing him wrong. Now, yes, obviously there needs to be a punishment in the race because they may well have disrupted someone else's race or gained an advantage by it. But you can't, specifically give penalty points to the driver for reacting to the traffic lights. You get T-boned at traffic lights on the street when it's gone green and you pull up and someone hits you. It's not your fault. It's quite ridiculous. And the stewards have been a bit up and down all weekend. So look at, again, the Verstappen and Lewis incident. Yeah, it was scrappy from Max, a bit of a desperate lunge. But yes, there was contact. There was no damage to either car. Nothing was gained. Nothing was lost. No one's race was disrupted. Literally nothing happened from that contact. Why were they investigating it? It's completely insane, especially when they made such a big deal at the start of the year before Australia, saying we've had a big meeting about where we're going to be lenient, where we're going to be tough, and how we're going to let them race more. They haven't done that.
Verstappen got 2 penalty points for the unsafe release.
I thought that's what you just said.
No, I didn't know that. Did he?
I said that. I'll double check it on Twitter, but that's that was what's reported.
Okay, I think the time penalty is high. I expected minimum 10 seconds, but probably a drive-through because that's what we've seen in the past. But 2 penalty points. How's that Verstappen's fault? If the light's gone green and the team have released him, that's entirely the team's fault. So give 2 penalty points to the team. I was like, that's not... Wow, that is...
Yeah, 2 penalty points, which brings him up to 7 in the last 12 months.
Well, that's bull. Thank you for interrupting that, Jonty.
Yeah. But it kind of, in some ways, ties into a point we were on about yesterday with the F2 sprint race. There's been some iffy things with the whole race direction this weekend. I mean, that situation with the marshals yesterday was completely unacceptable. It's very, very odd. And we even saw it today. Yes, there was a safety car out, but all the cars hadn't been picked up by the safety car when they had marshals out on track sweeping. So there were still cars going quicker, trying to catch up, out of position. There was a lot of risks taken.
It has, but it's been a weird weekend stewarding wise, hasn't it? That's thrown me off. That 2 penalty points. I know he's hit Bottas and that's that, but he's hit Bottas because of a team mistake, and he can't see anything down that. But you can't see anything out the mirrors anyway. But you certainly can't see it in the pit lane. So yeah, I don't agree with that at all. The time penalty I don't agree with. I think it should have been more, particularly when you think Giovinazzi got 10 seconds for what happened with Kubica, although that is entirely driver fault. So I wonder if they're actually thinking about it. Sorry, I'm going on about it now. I wonder if perhaps the stewards are a bit more lenient, Stuart, because they know it was a team mistake and not the driver? Maybe? Or is it just a bit of inconsistency again for a change?
I think this is another of those incidents where it would really help to have a kind of standardized list for, incidents and punishments so that we were all clear on what merits what. And I know they need a little bit of wiggle room because not every incident is the same, and you need to have some grey area for making a judgment call. But when we're left shaking our heads over what these punishments should be and why someone got 5 seconds for this, someone got a drive through for that, and someone got 10 seconds for something else, I think we should all, for the most part, be like, yeah, that makes sense. That's the penalty you get for that, even if the penalty seems harsh. If we know what it is in advance, like on paper as a general rule, then I think that would benefit all of us. I thought I did just randomly have here. Like, I know the order the garages are in the pit lane is by championship order, but it might be more useful to kind of shuffle them up so that the teams that are close together in the championship are far apart, so they don't, so you can see the other car coming rather than you both darting out of your pit box at the same time. Just a thought.
No, it's a fair point.
And just for a little cherry on this whole discussion about the issues around stewarding and direction this weekend, I've looked it up. He did get 2 penalty points for the pit lane incident, and the stewards thought he hit Kubica, not Bottas.
Yeah, they wrote the wrong number, didn't they? They wrote 88 instead of 77.
Oh dear. Yeah, we'll leave it on that for the penalty. I think the 5 seconds was too lenient. But 2 penalty points is a joke. No, I don't agree with that at all. I think we just need... There needs to be a rule, and it needs to be unsafe release is this. Regardless of the circumstances, this is the penalty for an unsafe release, etc., etc. But common sense and stewarding doesn't appear to go hand in hand in Formula One at the moment. I'm sure it's a coincidence, but it seems to have really gone down since Charlie sadly passed away. I think we discussed this the other week, actually, Stuart, didn't we? I think it is just coincidence, but it feels a little bit like that. Of course, that ultimately kind of ruined it for Bottas, and I suppose actually put the pressure on Hamilton. If they'd had Bottas in second place, Mercedes, Hamilton might have been more comfortable, but that put him third. It was a quiet one for Bottas today. I've got to be honest, Jonty. I kind of all lost for him yesterday. I wasn't in qualifying when he ended up second place, but I thought Verstappen had him into turn one. Off the line, he was up the inside, but really good driving to keep the foot planted around the outside and hold on to second place. So I think credit there for Bottas, and it was really that unsafe release and getting caught up with that with Verstappen, which cost him probably second today, but still seemed quiet from Bottas.
Yeah, it was a little bit quiet, but he made up the time when he needed to, knowing about the penalty for Verstappen. And you're quite right, Verstappen, I thought he got him into turn one, and Verstappen was uncharacteristically easy on the attack there, because up until the braking point, he'd earned himself some space and then braked way earlier. And Bottas just said, nope, my corner. I thought we got a great team battle on then, but he kind of faded away a bit. It was odd. But overall, he's still a lot faster than we were expecting, than we would have been expecting last year. So it's still positive for him.
Yeah, maybe it was another side to his game. Maybe he realised that the chances of passing Vettel and Verstappen if he got away were slim, so there's no point pushing the car too much and taking risks and just bring it home for third place. Hey, we might look at this in Abu Dhabi and say, oh, thank God he got that third place in Monaco. What a drive that was. It could be championship defining, but obviously Lewis Hamilton has got a 20-point lead, I think, now in the standings, so, or something like that. It might be less than that, actually, but did almost lose third place, did Bottas, but as Jonty said there, Stuart had to step it up a little bit to get the laps in, but I don't think... We'll move away from the top three teams in a minute. We'll talk about Gasly as well, but I know mainly because of Lewis's tyre issues, but I don't really think any of the top three teams, Gasly aside, were really pushing today. That felt... I know Jonty disagrees with the comparison from last year because it was a completely different situation, but it felt a little bit like that in the sense that none of the top drivers were really giving it everything except for probably Max Verstappen. He tried everything, even that move into Nouvelle Chicane. I agree with Jonty, by the way. I think there was no need to look at that.
Yeah, for the most part, I agree. I don't think it's as bad as last year when everyone got stuck behind Ricciardo and everyone, all the drivers came out afterwards and said they were bored because they had nothing to do. They just turned off their engines and coasted for 70 laps. I think there was more going on this time than last time. But yeah, they the top teams, especially up to Bottas, didn't have much to do. Sort of waiting to see if Verstappen would do anything and then we'll see if it was their turn. But yeah, Bottas did nearly lose that third place. They were close the top four were close together, but with the sort of concertina effect, especially around lapping cars, Bottas occasionally dropped more than 5 seconds behind Verstappen. So that was a little bit touch and go, but good for him. He managed to get onto the podium, and that might come into play later. This today could have been a whole lot different if he managed to hang on to pole position, because yesterday it did look like it was his to lose, but Hamilton found the extra couple of tenths at the last minute. But yeah, this could have been a whole different race, especially if Hamilton started second and Verstappen had managed to squeeze it up the inside into turn one.
Yeah, quick word on Gasly, and I'm going to put a question to you both because I like to do that. Quiet race, it felt like, for Gasly, but he did. Again, we know there were circumstances up front which have allowed for this, but he was only 9.9 seconds off the lead, having made 2 pit stops. He delivered fastest lap as well, I think. I think he had a nice quiet race, 8th place, made his way up to 5th. I think he can be very happy with that drive, and I think Red Bull will be as well. I was quite impressed with Gasly today, Jonty. He didn't do anything spectacular, but he did, in my opinion, what he needs to do and what Red Bull will be expecting him to do, and that is pick up those 5th and 6th places.
Yeah, he kind of fulfilled his role pretty accurately, like you said. And if you remember, I suggested this more as a joke back last time I was on, that Gasly will probably spend the season running around in 6th, taking a stop with 10 laps to go and going for the fastest lap. He's done it, that 3 or 4 races he's been in that position to do it now. But that could prove massively important for him. That's a potential, he'd already lost a few, but it could have been a potential 21 points for him by the end of the year, because he'll always be in the position to do that. He's certainly getting to know that car and getting to use it. And I think being in that position is actually helping him. He's not having to worry about the scraps just now. He's just getting more and more time to get used to the car, get quicker in the car, and then maybe second half of the season he can start properly scrapping again.
Yeah, he seems more comfortable, and with what's going on at Ferrari with their strategy at the moment, I think Red Bull have got a great chance of second place in a constructor. So if he can keep picking up those points and those fastest laps, like you say, that could prove critical. If they finish second by a couple of points, they can look at Gasly and go, "Cheers, mate." Another man though, I do want to talk about Carlos Sainz, because I didn't really talk about him at all in the race, and I think that kind of demonstrates the drive that he had. It was solid. He did very well to get up to 6th. Where did he start? He was
9th.
Yeah, 9th place. To get up to 6th place in Monaco, really good strategy. One of those that I feel a bit bad about not giving a bit more attention to be honest, Stuart, because it's a solid performance, and again, really good points for McLaren.
Yeah, he had a really good but invisible race where he had the pace. Strategy worked well for him. I mean, his strategy, he did the 1 stop as opposed to Gasly, but Gasly only did, 2 stops to get that fastest lap in. Really made it work, moved up the order as best he could, and finished best of the rest, really, after the top 3 teams, not counting Leclerc, who didn't finish at all. Very solid drive from Sainz. I'd be happy to see McLaren drivers continuing to get the most out of their car, which is really, really good to see. Shame sort of Norris fell back a bit, but I guess we can't have everything. I do just quickly, I have a slightly differing opinion on Gasly. I mean, I think he still had a good race, but watching the race, it was quite clear that he was the one car of the top 3 that wasn't keeping up with the sort of Lewis Hamilton train. He was dropping back a bit, and maybe he was just realised he was in a different race and managing his tyres differently. But I think he still has yet to show he's on similar levels with the other 5 drivers in that group of 3 teams, I think. But he still had a good race. He got that fastest lap in and he made it work for him. And of course, he was fast enough to be able to take an extra pit stop than the cars behind.
I think that's a fair point. That is a fair point. Yeah. I can't disagree with that. I tried to find a way to make it interesting, but I can't disagree with it. I think that's a very fair point. Toro Rosso, though. Honda, all 4 of their cars in the points. Did not think I'd be saying this a couple of years ago, to be honest, Stuart, but really good from Toro Rosso all weekend, particularly Daniel Kvyat. And I look at 7th place, and this is going to sound ridiculous. I think he'll be disappointed not to be a little bit higher. Maybe getting Carlos Sainz 6th, because he had driven well, Practice was good. Qualifying was very, very good up until Q3 when he didn't quite deliver the lap I was expecting him to. And 7th and 8th for them, Kvyat and Albon. I was really impressed with Kvyat this weekend.
Yeah, had a really lovely, solid race, didn't he? Both of them did. Those Toro Rosso Honda cars look like a really nice package. And I know that Honda Power Unit package is not, quite up to par with the rest of them, but it's not as far behind as it's been by a long, long way. And, they're the only engines who got 4 cars in the top 10. So as far as I can tell, really good result for them. I'm glad we're getting to see Kvyat demonstrate his potential again. I know he had a rocky time at Toro Rosso and Red Bull before, but it's good to see he can keep up with Albon, who, of course, is impressing quite a lot of people right now in this rookie season. So to not languish in his shadow is really good for Kvyat.
Yeah. What do you reckon, John? I've not really had you on, so I can't really ask. What have you made of Albon and Kvyat so far in 2019? Because I think they've been 2 of the surprises.
They've both been impressing really, really well. I mean, because we said this back at the start of the season, Kvyat's got the pressure on him because he really wants to show you were wrong to Marco and whoever else made the decisions back in 2017, 16? 16.
16 and 17, wasn't it?
Yeah. And also, Albon's got a lot of pressure on him because a lot of people do suspect that he was kind of the desperate placeholder while they tried to get Tantrum in. He's really been the standout performance from the two. I think, Kvyat's scoring more, but Albon's really putting himself to the task superbly well. And I think maybe with a lot of the criticism that's gone on about Gasly and the talk of, will he get ditched and swapped for one of the other drivers, perhaps Albon's been smart and taken it upon himself to impress so much that he might get the jump instead of Kvyat if that was to happen. I don't think it will now because Gasly's speeding up a lot, but you never know. If you were in Albon's position, wouldn't you be going out of your way to make sure you were the one picked?
Can you see? I said this to you the other day, didn't I? Can you see Marco swallowing his pride twice with Kvyat? He's already done it once.
I mean, the thing is, Gasly is picking up his pace, but I think he's one of those seats much more than Bottas. Actually, when we were, thinking about this season going into it, Gasly's seat is now looking like the precarious one in the top tier teams. So I think they know they need someone solid in that seat, and maybe Gasly will continue to improve and show that he's the guy that is needs to be the number 2 in that team. But yeah, I mean, I think Red Bull have shown they're pragmatic, if anything. I don't think it's going to be a matter of pride. I think it's just going to be we're going to stick the people in the seat who we think need to be there, no matter who feels bad about it.
Ricciardo, 9th. Grosjean in 10th. I think we need to move on to them. I said post race, if you like, in the race watch along that I put Grosjean just ahead of Ricciardo. He didn't. Ricciardo pipped him with a final lap of a 1:15.6 compared to Grosjean's 1:17.3. So Ricciardo, because obviously of Grosjean's 5-second penalty, delivered... basically snatched 9th on that final lap effectively with that lap time. That's a hell of a lap. Nearly a couple of seconds quicker. So I think Grosjean will be disappointed. It's a bit of a rookie error to cross the pit lane exit line. But then again, I suppose, Stuart, in Monaco, it's quite tricky to exit the pits, isn't it? So, I mean, cut him a bit of slack there. But I think Grosjean could be a good shout for some people for driver of the day because his strategy was spot on. Jonty touched on it earlier. He basically drove for 6 weeks on the soft tyres, which nobody gave a hope in hell of getting particularly far. And it just, he started quite a way down as well. So I think he's done really well. But I think Daniel Ricciardo, on the other hand, despite being 9th, I think will be quite disappointed because through that first lap and before the safety car came out, he was up to 5th. He had a really decent start to get past K-Mag.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Grosjean versus Ricciardo in, how their race unfolded, Ricciardo started 6th and then did 9th, and Grosjean started 13th and then did 10th with a penalty. So, yeah, I think Grosjean will be disappointed with his penalty, but happy, overall with that race, I think they had a tricky time today. Did Haas, especially if you look at Magnussen, who ended up 12th. Him and Ricciardo both kind of got screwed under the safety car period. I wasn't entirely clear what happened. Maybe one of you guys had a bit of a clearer picture of that, but they were sitting quite happily in the points, and the safety car came, and then suddenly they were just at the bottom of the midfield, and had to spend the rest of the race kind of making their way back up. And those two drivers, Magnussen and Ricciardo, had a similar journey to Hamilton, where they just sat on those medium tyres for 80% of the race. So yeah, I think Ricciardo will be disappointed, and I think he would have had a really tough time. I imagine he would have had a similar experience to Hamilton by the end of that race, just hoping his tyres last long enough to cling onto those points. But they clearly lasted long enough to get that fast lap at the end.
Yeah, and they all got stuck behind Kimi Raikkonen, who also ran forever on those tyres, didn't he? So frustrating for Daniel Ricciardo. But I think Grosjean will be happy. If you'd like a completely useless stat, it's one I might be wrong on, but I think that's the first points that Daniel Ricciardo scored in his multicoloured helmet. I think prior to that, the only ones he scored were in his tribute helmet for China.
I think you're right, yeah.
That is sad, isn't it? It's such a sad thing to talk about. Positives for Ricciardo from this weekend, both his helmets can score points. Take that how you will. Let's move on quite quickly. Have a look through the field very quickly about other talking points. Norris, I think, will be disappointed not to get himself into points, 5.7 off in the end. I'll be honest, Jonty, not a great weekend for Norris. If you compare it to his teammates, Sainz has looked good, but Norris not been great.
Yeah, not the best, but I suppose it's Monaco, it's always difficult, and I have had the impression from him throughout the season that he's really trying to be careful to make sure that he doesn't do anything silly. And around Monaco, it's very, very easy to do that, and I think it just affected his pace quite badly.
Stuart touched on K-Mag getting stuck in that train and whatnot, and getting screwed by the safety car. Odd weekend, I've got to say, Stuart, for Racing Point. I think Monaco is a track traditionally they don't go brilliantly at, but last year, of course, Esteban Ocon, I think, was 6th in the race, so I was expecting a little bit more from them, but they didn't have the pace in qualifying. They didn't really deliver much in the race. 13th and 16th, I think they can be very disappointed with that, as I'm sure, given that he started 11th and his teammate went on to finish 9th, will be Nico Hülkenberg down in 14th.
Yes. Racing Point didn't look on it at all this weekend. They had a really naff qualifying. They were both out in Q1. With the Williams and Leclerc, that was not fun for them. And then Stroll had a messy race. He sort of boffed Kimi Raikkonen, but I'd say that's a bit of a racing incident because past the hotel chicane, past the hotel hairpin, it's all a bit tight, and you're looking forwards and backwards. It's tricky. But yeah, they didn't really look anywhere. They didn't look capable of scoring points. Probably not suited to their car, and we'll see how they get on. We're still in a sort of building phase for Racing Point as well, because they're sort of recovering from last year. Nico Hülkenberg, goodness knows what happened to him this race.
That is great analysis. I think it's about spot on, because I just looked then, and when I was talking about Racing Point, I was like, why was Hülkenberg 14th? What's going on there?
He stopped on lap 9 and switched to the hard tyres, which is 2 laps earlier than the safety car stoppers did. But I suppose because of the little incident he had. So, didn't have a dissimilar strategy from, Vettel, Verstappen. I think, having that early clonk with Leclerc and coming in early and losing a lot of time there kind of put him at the back of the queue when all the cars came in under the safety car, and coming in under the safety car is a lot quicker than not. So I think that's where he lost the majority of his time, because he came in so early. Unlucky race for him, really. He sort of got set up from his little incident at Rascasse with Leclerc.
It's not Renault's year, is it, Jonty? All this talk of fourth place, they're just nowhere.
No, they're really not. They just can't get it together. there's always something that's just a miss each weekend, and it's very, very odd.
Think
I'm
heads are
not
going
quite
to
sure
roll?
what to make of it. Possibly. But again, that's a difficult one because of the way the teams run. With Renault itself being a part state-owned thing, in theory, they could have a national referendum on whether the team stops or not. In theory, it would never happen, but it could.
Let's not talk about referendums. We
No,
don't do well with referendums in this country.
but it was mentioned in the chat. And one point I just want to bring up because I just looked at it. Going back to the race direction and marshals again, there was an issue with Perez coming out of the pits. 2 marshals running across the track. He missed one by the width of a tyre.
Really?
It's a terrifying incident. And the speed he was doing, that would have been probably a dead marshal. It's ridiculous. I have no idea what was going on there.
I'll have to have a look at that a little bit later. Yeah, it's been a weird one. A weird one. Very quickly, on Alpha, Raikkonen tried it on strategy, didn't really work in the end for him. Giovinazzi, 10-second penalty, Jonty, for that incident with Kubica. Do you think that penalty was fair? Do you think that was the correct way to go?
Probably, yeah, because it affected so many other people.
Yeah, would you agree, Stuart?
Yeah, it was a clumsy incident, and it could have gone worse, as we saw in the F2. A very similar accident brought the race to a halt between Calderon and Schumacher. But I think it's probably fair. While I still want to encourage people to go for it in Monaco because there's so little opportunity to do it, I think it just went a bit wrong, didn't it?
I did get excited when I saw the overhead shot. I thought, we might get a red flag. It's going to be getting interesting, but I've got to say it. I'm going to get excited here. I was going to have confetti and everything, but I didn't have time to get it set up. Williams weren't last, and only one car retired. George Russell 15th and Robert Kubica 18th. I'm sorry if that sounds sarcastic. It is a little bit, but let's be honest, Stuart. It's not points, it's not much, but that's a little bit of a win for them this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they'll be pretty happy with that. Russell, you think he would have had a worse time, actually, because he did very similar to Hulkenberg, where he pitted before the safety car came out, I think maybe in anticipation, and just ran a solid race to the end on the hard tyres for like 67 laps. It worked for him. Giovinazzi made a rod for his own back with some clumsiness, but I think you got to take what you can with Williams. I think they're going to be sort of vaguely pleased with that, and at the very least, they have both finished every race.
Yeah. Russell, your driver of the day, Jonty?
Well, he's certainly got to be in with a shout. To drag that car to 15th is one hell of an achievement. And beyond, I can't really disagree with what most people are saying, that Lewis really should be driver of the day.
Yeah, let us know in chat what you think. I'll read some from Twitter in a moment. Stuart, your driver of the day?
Initial thought, yeah, you got to at least consider Lewis, because if things are as bad as he kept saying they were, then he did a hell of a job to keep the thing going and not get the tyres beyond use. I also want to give a shout out to Sainz. He did really well, even though we didn't see him, which is a shame. And yeah, some consideration to Russell. The drivers in those Williams cars are very, very hard to judge, which, by the end of the year, Russell could be the rookie of the year. We'd never know because it's such an incomparable team. So yeah, those are my 3 people worth considering.
I think some good shouts in there. I'm going to go Lewis. He just showed the other side to his driving once again to get those tyres to the end. I think he definitely, but absolutely, Sainz has got to get a shout for me. Either of the Toro Rosso boys and Grosjean, I think it's got to be in that mix as well. But I'll read a couple of thoughts and drivers of the day from Twitter. Ellie, hello Ellie, if you're listening. Thought it was a really enjoyable race, so much better than last year. The tension with Max and Lewis at the end, very good. Kelly says second best race of the year, driver of the day, either Russell or Sainz. See, I said Russell as a joke, but apparently a lot of people seem to think Russell might be with a shout. A few people complaining that the track's unfit for proper racing, but it's been on the calendar since 1950, and that's been the case probably since 1950, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to people. But we don't get a lot of overtaking. A lot of people saying Lewis Hamilton, it seems to be. Track needs to be about a metre wider out of the tunnel. A lot of people calling it boring. I don't know what they must have had a rerun, Jonty, of Spain on. They must have.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thriller. There wasn't a ton of overtaking. But when was the last time we saw a ton of overtaking in Monaco?
Well, exactly. I think we've talked. It's not driver of the day, but I think an honourable mention should go to Dan's man, Rogro. 51 laps on the soft. And when we were comparing his race with Ricardo's earlier, Ricardo lost 3 places. Grosjean made 3 up.
Yeah.
Around Monaco, that's nothing to be sniffed at.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I'll take a couple from chat. Not most people on Twitter, but some people with some opinions that I'm not going to read out because it's just going to start a fire. But a few people, a bit miffed about the race. Awesome drive from Hamilton and Verstappen, says M. DeLorean. Might have to go and watch Back to the Future later. I never take team radio messages from Lewis seriously, says Marty24. Definitely. Going to have to go and watch Back to the Future later. Lewis, Science. Adam's going with Science for driver of the day. Russell, driver of the day for keeping it together. Jonty just put in chat, remember this day, Jonty gave a compliment to Rogro. Lewis had an amazing drive, but being a Ferrari fan, I'm not saying it. Yeah. Good shouts in there, actually. Mostly Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz needs to be the popular one. Couple for Russell as well. I think, who won? Did Max Verstappen win the official one?
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Leclerc came third, hilariously.
What? Oh.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah. Anyway.
I think the important thing to note today is that the Mercedes 1-2 streak is broken. Their domination is finally over, and the race is only going to get more exciting from here on.
Yeah, and it was a decent race as well. I think we can take away from that. But going to end it on a poignant note and, of course, give you two an opportunity to say anything if you want to. You don't have to, but I just want to finish this weekend by reiterating what I've pretty much said since Wednesday, really. Rest in peace, Niki Lauda, an absolute legend, a hero of mine, a hero of many, not just for what he did behind the wheel of a race car, but also for what he did for safety in Formula One, for Mercedes, just for being a genuinely top bloke. A massive loss to Formula One, a huge loss to us as fans, to the sport as a whole, and he will be, well, deeply missed. So rest in peace, Niki. I don't know if you want to say anything, Jonty.
I don't really think I can.
Well, Stuart, I can leave it there if not.
I mean, what you said kind of covers it. He was a big presence in the sports, a great champion, and then continued to do and be great things for Formula One in the years after his driving. I think his absence will be felt quite strongly.
Yeah, I agree. Was there something you wanted to say, Jonty?
Peter Andrus actually did a quick super chat earlier asking who was better, Hunt or Lauda, and it's not because he's gone. Lauda was by far the better driver, and I think he proved it time and time again, and everything he's done around the sport was just unbelievable, and he will be missed.
He will, absolutely, and I will just say I agree with that completely. I'd put Lauda above Hunt, but I will just say from a fan perspective, I'm going to miss having somebody in the paddock that gets asked a question and doesn't give you some PR BS. He would come out and he would say it as it is, and that's what I loved about Niki Lauda, away from his racing, but an inspiration to many of us, I'm sure. We're going to leave it there before we all get a bit over-emotional. Thank you very much, Stuart, for coming along. Once again, it was nice to chat about this one. I think you're off to watch the Indy 500 as we all are now.
Sure am. Yeah, thanks very much. It was great to have something to talk about.
Absolutely, and thank you very much as well, Jonty. Great to have you back. I've missed you, mate, without getting all emotional.
Yeah, it's been difficult for a while, but things are sorted, and be doing this a lot more now. And cars are going around the Brickyard as we speak. So enjoy the Indy 500 as well, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll talk to you at some point soon.
Cheers.
We thank you very much to Stuart and to Jonty, and thanks to you guys for tuning in all weekend. It's been another cracking weekend. I'm going to disappear now and watch my first Indy 500. So if you've got any tips, let me know in the comment section. And do follow me over on social media. All of the links you need are in the description down below. I'll be back tomorrow with the debrief. That'll be up at some point tomorrow evening here on the F1 Word. And if you're interested, I know some are and some are just going to bitch at me for it, but whatever. We will be live on Wednesday night for a look back at the Formula E season with Dan. So if you're interested in that, come along. If you're not, then you don't have to watch. It's really as simple as that. Like I say, links in the description to social media. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.